All right, welcome back to another episode of Persuasion by the Pint. I'm Jonathan Taylor, along with
Sean McCool.
And today we are continuing discussing the forbidden keys to persuasion. So what do we're still drinking our pumpkin, not our pumpkin spice, but
It's
our
not pumpkin spice. Yes, the same as last episode. Go back and listen to the last episode.
Yeah, you should. You shouldn't expect us to actually say the name of it.
Kentucky Pumpkin Barrel Ale.
Kentucky Pumpkin Barrel Ale, and it is very
stuff.
good.
We'll put a link in the show notes that you can look that up. So this is episode 6, right?
Episode 6.
Right.
So we're moving right along.
We are deep into the Forbidden Keys to Persuasion by Blair Warren.
Yeah, and as we mentioned on this last episode, it's a very it's one of these reports that it goes very deep. You really have to. I mean, to me, you have to read this 2 or 3 times to really pull out some things. I mean, you should this is one of those things you don't want to just download and read on your iPad or something like that. You want to print this out with a highlighter. It makes
when I
notes.
started reading through this on the PDF, after I started reading, I was like, "Oh, this deserves a leather." We're doing we're doing these on video too. So right now there's a camera looking at me.
Yeah,
and I picked my one of my nice binders that I had. That was
look at you, man.
Pleather,
pleather.
I don't think it's leather, but
pleather.
It's pleather with a white,
fake
black
leather
with
binder.
White stitching. Matches my truck, by the way.
Yeah. Yep. It sure.
And I was like, this deserves its own binder because this is top shelf.
It is
information right here. I mean, if you are in the business of persuasion and influence or sales, or if you have a family, a wife, kids, especially teenagers, as Jonathan and I have been talking about off podcast, you need to understand these things, not to manipulate. We're going to talk about how you can use these to manipulate, but what's more important is that you can use these to persuade and influence people, even in their best interest.
Yeah.
This is not about manipulation. That's not why we started this podcast. We wanted to, sometimes you need to persuade and influence people for their own good.
Yeah.
And in fact, if you're not doing that, you're probably with the wrong motive.
Yeah. You're a shyster.
Yeah, I mean...
You're a huckster. What do they call it? You could hold up a chain and just kind of dangle it. You will listen. You will love this podcast.
I mean, we go back to Stephen Covey quite often. It needs to be a win-win.
Yeah.
And sometimes, because people are so skeptical, we have to use these tactics and these techniques just to break down the ridiculous amount of skepticism that other people have caused people that our clients have been so burned or have been so manipulated by other people that there's this wall between us and them that we need to break down, and we can use some of these techniques and tactics just to break down that wall, just to get back to an even playing field.
Right.
And I think that's what's important about this. So we've been talking about the Forbidden Keys to Persuasion by Blair Warren.
Yep.
There's a link in the show notes on this episode and on episode 5 where you can get a copy of this. I strongly suggest it. It may or may not be an affiliate link. I'm not sure at this point. Either way, I think Jonathan, you said it was like $20. It's like the best deal of the century.
Best $20 you'll ever spend.
Yeah. So we talked about hidden addictions 1 and 2.
Yep.
We were going to do 3. We didn't make it to 3.
Yep.
So because we rambled a little bit. So now we're talking about hidden addiction number 3 is what we're going to kick off this show with.
And just to review, number 1, people need to feel needed.
Yes.
People always want to feel needed. Number 2, when aware of an impasse, people do anything to gain a sense of hope. We mentioned a lot of examples of using hope as a means of motivating people, and how that's used. Politics. You obviously cults, giving people hope. People get overlooked and people that want to feel like they're contributing or what they offer provides a sense of hope.
If you can identify your target market, whatever niche you're in, whether it's weight loss, whether it's earning extra money, whether it's whatever it is. I mean, if you can tap in, if you can identify what their hopelessness is,
yep,
and then offer hope,
yep,
that is in contrast to that, man, you've got a home run right there.
Yeah,
I mean, you really, really do. So I want to get, and this is totally not where we were going, but I want to ask you, Jonathan, because you're in a very B2B space in your day-to-day life.
Sure.
You deal with the composites industry. So what is a hopelessness, and I know I'm putting you on the spot, but what's a hopelessness that these guys have that you can address? Like what are they scared of? What are they afraid it's going to happen that your products or your services help offer hope? Because I think if we can, and I'll give you a chance, I'm going to give you a little time here to figure that out. Because if you can apply it to a B2B space, you can apply it to anything else.
Sure, yeah.
I mean, so what do you think, just off the top of your head, what comes to mind there?
Okay. So, one thing that comes to mind with a lot of manufacturers in the space that I typically do a lot of sales and consulting in are, I'll give you one flat out example. Tariffs. Okay. So, which are not as what people think, they're probably not as big as people think they are. They don't have as big of an impact. But I think that's a fear, and what I mean by tariffs is some of the tariffs that have been imposed on goods that are being exported from China, from other countries. So we're putting tariffs on those goods now. And that can equate to material, raw material increases for manufacturers, companies. And so that's a fear that people have because
so the hopelessness would be lack of profits.
Bingo.
Okay. So then the hope would be
raw materials going up. They have to raise prices, which customers in essence, they bucket that because they say, wait a minute now, why are prices going up 20% or 15 to 20%?
Yeah. So it kind of gets you in this place of like, what's the point of running a business if we're not going to make any profit?
Right.
Like it's all hopeless.
Yeah.
I mean, it can escalate very quickly in their brain about it becomes hopeless. And then you come in and you offer hope.
Yeah.
In various ways.
Right. Yeah. So raise your prices. What's a big deal? Okay. Raise your prices, and because you're probably selling too low to begin with. You're competing, which is very common in a lot of companies that that I work with. That they're competing from a commodity mindset, and so you have to. If you're ever going to eliminate the objection on price, as you know, you have to rise above the commodity mindset thinking in terms of your pricing. You have to learn how to improvise and make value, incorporate value into your products.
Your service.
Yeah, absolutely. Exceptional service, whether that be the service that you offer, the lead times, all of this stuff can be those are value-added things to overcome price. And as you mentioned earlier on a previous podcast, price is not always you will find that in terms of B2B, price is a lot lower than what most people think it is. It's not all about price.
Well, I think prices, and I've been in sales and front of consumers. I didn't do a lot of B2B sales in my career, but price is kind of the default.
It is.
If I don't know what else to ask about, I'm going to ask about price.
Yeah,
because you haven't given me any other information, other than price to ask about. So if you haven't asked me about deliverability, if you haven't asked me about time from order to when it shows up on my loading dock, which is a big deal for a lot of people.
Absolutely.
If we haven't talked about those things and all you're concerned about is price, then that's what I'm going to be concerned about. So
there's a difference in price, and then there's a difference in money overall savings
cost.
Cost and price are two different things. And you can, if you're not from a marketing standpoint, if you're not positioning yourself as a way to save that position, that particular company in terms of, their overall cost. And if you're just competing on price alone, then you're really at a disadvantage, because there's, again, when you're a commodity, you're just, it's all about, at the end of the day, we as consultant, you as a business coach, you don't compete on price, do you?
No, I like to charge a lot.
You like to charge a lot of money, right?
Yeah.
But there's a reason, and I find it ironic that, consultants and coaches and so many others will charge these high end, but when it comes to a lot of these companies, when they feel like they simply get in a mindset of being just another commodity. And that's a dangerous place to be, because when you're viewed as a commodity, that means you're definitely not a necessity, and so it's easy to eliminate you from the equation overall.
Right, and to get back to where I started that question from, hope and hopelessness, is that if you can tap into people's hope and what's possible, you can charge so much more.
Yes, exactly.
For that hope than you can. Yep. And I know that was the last episode, but I wanted to kind of bring it back because it's such a big thing. As a coach, as a life coach who talks about, all areas of life and how they work together, one of the things I tap into is the hope of a better life, a hope of a better future, a hope of better relationships, better fitness, all these different things. And, the value of that over time, and hope is really kind of an over time thing.
Sure.
It's not an instant thing.
Right.
Is exponentially more than what they would pay me.
Right.
And I can show, it's hard to show exactly on a spreadsheet, but if I were in a conversation with you, I could show you very quickly how working with me over even a short period of time has exponential results.
Right.
You were in the military and I was in the military. When you do a land navigation course and all you have is a map and a compass, not GPS, not these spoiled kids with their GPS. When you have a magnetic compass and a map, if you're 1 degree off over 5 miles or 5 clicks or whatever it is, you are nowhere in the right area where you need to be. Yeah. And if you were to call in an airstrike at that time,
you've totally missed target.
You're going to be in the wrong place at the wrong time.
You've wasted a lot of government.
A lot of government training, a lot of government resources. And if you can nail that and you can shift people's direction by 1% or 2% over the course of 5, 10, 15 years, which is what I try to do in my coaching, and in my marketing when I work with copywriting clients and other people, it's a exponential difference. Yeah. So that's kind of a tangent from where we're going on this episode, but that's how these podcasts are. We're going to go in a little tangent.
We're going to go in tangents. You're going to see all kinds of rabbit trails.
This is like us around a fire pit with a good beer. Like this is how the podcast works. So
absolutely.
Hidden addiction number 3 is people need a scapegoat. Man, I see this everywhere. Yeah. Like when you know this, like it is everywhere in marketing.
A straw man, whatever you want to call it. They got to have somebody to.
Do you have a favorite? And I'm putting you on the spot again. Do you have a favorite like example of scapegoat?
Ooh,
I'm asking you broad. So that I can think of one.
Okay, a scapegoat. Okay, so if we're thinking of I always picture somebody saying, "Here's what somebody over here." The scapegoat is always. Let's give a definition first of all. Who is the scapegoat? The scapegoat is the person that we're referring to that is kind of the devil. I mean, they're the person that's doing it all wrong. That's the
or that's causing me pain, or that's So there's a 4-word phrase that I use in copywriting all the time. Now in my coaching, I never use it because it's a cop out. But I know in copy, like if I want to sell something in copy,
right,
and I just need to make a few bucks, like I'm being totally honest here, like right,
sure, yeah,
and I know I need to bend people a certain direction.
Yep.
There is a there's a 4-word phrase, and you'll see it all the time that I can use in copy that will immediately make people sit up and take notice.
Okay.
What do you think that is? You have any idea? It has to deal with scapegoat.
Just go ahead and tell me.
All right. It's not your fault.
How
many times have you seen that in health promotions?
Sure.
Right? It's not your fault. The FDA said that fat was bad, right? And now we got the keto revolution, and they told you fat was bad, but actually fat is good. So it's not your fault. Right? So we always let people, one of the things we did in copy, and this is almost like you remember that show on, I think it was on Fox or something, where the magician like revealed the tricks?
Oh, sure. Yeah.
The masked magician. It's kind of what I'm doing here. One of the key things that we used in copywriting to break down those barriers to resistance was to say, look, it's not your fault. It's not your fault that you're
making
fat.
all these dumb decisions.
It's not your fault that you can't figure out the stock market. It's not your fault that you can't make money.
Right.
As an entrepreneur or whatever.
Right.
Because you've been told X or you've been told Y or whatever. The truth is, and we're going to get into that in just a second. But the people want a scapegoat, and the reason they need and want a scapegoat is because it takes this pressure off. It releases some of the responsibility that I should have gone and figured this out.
So scapegoat can be conventional wisdom. Conventional wisdom
Absolutely.
has told you your whole life that you should do this, and this is what the majority of people, when we talk about, social proof and being lemmings, people follow that conventional wisdom. And
one of my clients, Russ, he used to tell me, he said, conventional wisdom is a recipe for conventional results. I thought it was a great phrase.
Yeah, I love that.
So people want a scapegoat. They want somebody that they can blame.
It could be the government. It could be
it can be so many things.
The banking industry. People want to blame, conventional, what people tell them in the approach to conventional investing.
Right.
People say, "Oh, you should do this." When
I wrote financial promotions for Agora, the whole business of Agora, and if you're not familiar, if you're listening, you're not familiar with Agora, it's a newsletter company.
Yeah.
And the whole basis of that entire company, it's $1 billion a year company, is that Wall Street and the big companies like Smith Barney or Scott Trade or whatever, they're not telling you the whole story.
Sure.
They want you to be diversified. They want the conventional is not right. It's not your fault. You've been deceived by those people. Yep. That was the whole entry into that world, and then it's like, oh, by the way, we have which we'll get into next.
Yep.
So there's one word that we'll get into next that is about that. But people want a scapegoat.
And that can be XYZ political party. That can be XYZ bank. That can be...
Well, it's where the us versus them mentality
certain
comes
industries. From. Yeah, exactly.
I mean, the 80s and now coming back around again is the Cold War. It's the Russians' fault.
Yep.
Right? It's always something. It's always something, and it's good because what it does is it relieves us of responsibility.
Absolutely, every time
and it lets us off the hook.
Right,
and it goes back to what we just said previously. Well, if it's not our fault, then that means there's hope that there's a solution.
Yeah.
So they all work together, right? Yeah. So if it's not if there's a scapegoat, then it wasn't my fault. So there's still hope.
Yeah.
And so it's all, like I said, it's all tied together.
It's funny you mention that because you can hear, if you listen to enough infomercials on television and radio, you hear that it's not your fault.
And sometimes usually it's that blatant.
Yeah. You never hear you're an idiot. You're dumb to believe that. You always hear it's not your fault. You're relieved of that responsibility.
You've been deceived. They're not telling you. I mean, Kevin Trudeau, is a great example of a guy who built a business around what they don't want you to know.
Right.
Right. The weight loss secrets they don't want you to know.
Yeah.
The financial secrets they don't want you to know. Right. And because you didn't know, it wasn't your fault.
Yeah.
Right. And again, we're going to tie that into the.
And he's a consumer advocate.
Right. Right. Looking out for you.
Always looking out for you.
So I think we beat that one a little bit. So hidden addiction number 4 is people need to be noticed and feel understood.
Sure.
Now, when I first read this, I thought this was very similar to number 2, which was people need to feel, or number 1, people need to feel needed. So what do you think the difference is? This is noticed and understood as opposed to just feel needed.
So let's listen. So I'm going to read this because we were talking about this earlier. So one of the key lines that can be used, and this can be said in multiple ways, but some may wonder about, or some may be questioning so-and-so. So what does that do? That taps into, I think that taps into some of the questions that people already have in their mind when you're trying to get on, I guess when you're trying to influence people. You've heard this many times before, but I know what you're thinking, and when somebody says, I know what you're thinking, and they state that, you're thinking, yeah, I mean, yeah,
they
exactly.
Really do know what I'm thinking.
You do know what I'm thinking, and wow, that's amazing. So, and I think that's a little bit different than being understood, and that you're tapping into their feeling of what their objections are. Where you're feeling like, I'm kind of on board, but I do have these reservations. And that's when you say, yeah, I understand. I've had those reservations, or I understand what that reservation is. And here's how we can,
Well, a classic example that kind of got worn out, but at the same time still works is feel, felt, found.
Yeah. Bingo.
Right. Understand how you feel.
I felt that once before.
I felt that before. And what I found is, and then you pivot to something, to the new idea, the new thought.
Exactly. Yeah.
And it gives people this sense of relief of, oh, I understand what you're talking about.
Right. Yeah.
And I've seen this in other marketing, like, it's been said in copywriting and other places in sales. If you can let people know that you understand what they're going through, like you've got them.
Yeah.
Like if once they realize that you understand them and you've been through what they've been through, or even that you're aware of what they're going through,
right?
Then there's an instant bond.
Yeah, absolutely.
That surpasses anything else you could do from a gimmick or technique or tactic standpoint.
Right.
It's kind of like if it's kind of in that world of rapport. It's there as far as like if I find out that you're a Georgia fan, I'm a Georgia fan, we didn't know each other before, and we both suffered a loss like we did recently, like there's an instant connection that we can commiserate over, right?
Damn.
Or, if you've got a teenager and I've got a teenager and we're both going through something similar, like it's an instant bond.
Yep. I've been there.
And the same thing is true in business to business or in weight loss, or like the difference, like a great example is, have you ever seen the guy Fit to Fat to Fit? Mm-mm. He did this experiment. So he's super fit, right? He's a trainer, and he's kind of always been fit. So he lost a lot of credibility with clients and even in his marketing because he'd never really lost weight.
Right.
He just he had this commitment early on that he was just going to stay in shape.
Right.
So he couldn't really understand his people that he was trying to reach. So he decided that he was going to, and I can't remember this guy's name, I apologize, but it's Fit to Fat to Fit. There's actually, I think, a documentary and a website.
Yeah.
So he decided to put on like 60 pounds.
Yeah.
Like, eat like crap, do all this stuff, and then try to take it off.
Right.
Well, he did it, but he talks about it on podcasts and some blog posts and different things. And what he learned...
Is he the guy that went on didn't he go on a late night talk show or something?
I think he's been a lot of stuff.
He really bloated up, and
yeah. I mean, he put on a good 60 pounds.
Yeah, I think I know who you're talking about.
But when he came through that process, he now understood.
Oh yeah,
the people that he was really trying to help,
right,
in a way that he could not have understood before, and people they got that, like they got that. Oh, he does understand me.
Yeah.
Like, he's not just some buff guy
Yeah.
that has never really suffered with,
Right.
wanting to eat
He
chips
understood
at
what it was
midnight.
like to have shortness of breath and,
Right.
trying to put on your pants and
that elevated him, and his business took off
Yeah.
after that,
Yep.
and the quality of his clients and even the results his clients got
Yeah.
because they now trusted him.
Mm-hmm.
So when you can show someone that you understand them,
Yeah.
they will give you a level of commitment and follow through
Yep.
that they won't give someone else who doesn't understand them.
Yeah.
So I think that's what's important about this as we talk about persuasion and influence and getting people to move in a certain direction.
Sure.
Is that when they feel understood, when they feel noticed, they will move, they will work much harder both for themselves and
Yeah.
for you.
Yep.
And that's what creates results. And
Yeah.
that's ultimately, if you're good at what you do and you care about the people you're serving, that's what you want. You want them to get results.
I think every person understands how, from a layman's term standpoint, people root for, and I've heard this phrase time and time again, people, they love to root for the underdog.
Yeah.
Because people can relate to that underdog. They've been there. It's a story of like Rudy. We watched the movie, the movie Rudy. He's the guy that's, 5'7", trying to make it on to Notre Dame, and he makes it, but people relate to that guy because, people can understand, what it's like to be normal or average, where, you look at a lot of these athletes today and they're like, they're incredibly in shape, and they're, it's amazing the athletic talent they have. But then people can gravitate to a guy that's pretty normal, that's worked his rear end off and made it onto a team and succeeded.
Yeah, and if people don't know that story, they can't trust that you understand them.
Right.
And there's actually an example with myself, and when I've spoken locally, we do meetups together. And there was a time, last year, I guess, that you invited me to speak at a meetup, and I decided I wasn't going to tell my story because I was tired of it. Yeah. Right. So I didn't want to tell people. So I have a story that I've been in sales, and I kind of wasn't doing all that great. And I got down to where I had like $26 in my pocket. Yep. And I went from there. I started a handyman business. I got back on my feet, and then I got into the copywriting business, started making six figures, and totally different lifestyle and different life and everything. And I got tired of that story. So I didn't want to tell it anymore.
It's too familiar.
Right. But the people the people I was talking to were still back at the $26 level, and they needed to hear that to trust me, because they're like, oh, I can't do that. Like, I have a friend who's a Super Bowl champion. Yeah. Like, literally, he has a Super Bowl ring. Yeah. Well, he actually had to sell it because he lost a lot of money in his day. But, if he doesn't remember to tell that story of how he lost it all and all that stuff, he can come across, it's very easy to come across as this guy who's just always had it all. Yeah. He's
easily.
He's naturally disciplined. He played in the NFL. Sure. He played for the Patriots, won a Super Bowl. Yeah. Like, it's really easy to be like, to dismiss what he's saying, even the truth of what he's saying, because it's like, he doesn't understand me. Yeah. Like, he doesn't understand where I'm starting from. Right. So it's so important in your marketing, as old as it gets for you. And I think David Ogilvy talked about this in one of his books. Like, by the time your customers or clients or prospects see your message, you've already seen it 30, 40, 50 times. And it's easy to want to change it.
For you to get tired of it, yeah.
It's like, I can't imagine like how sick and tired the board at Energizer Battery is of the Energizer Bunny. But there's a whole generation that's coming on that needs to buy batteries. Right. That needs to know that's the best battery out there. Yeah. And I know it doesn't have the same story, but the point is, like, just because it's old to you doesn't mean it's old to everybody in your market. So kind of keep going. Yep. Let them know that you understand the pains. Let them know that you understand what they're going through, what their needs are. You understand their hopelessness, going back to a previous episode, previous point. Yeah. And go from there.
Absolutely.
And bring them along with you.
Yeah.
All right. So we beat that one again. So hidden addiction number 5 is...
people need to know things. People need to know things others don't know that they aren't supposed to know. So people love secrets. You know, people love to have the inside scoop on XYZ. So
we use this all the time when I worked at Agora. My copy chief at the time, he's like, you know, if you can get the word secrets in the headline, it helps.
No matter how often it's used, it's powerful.
It's crazy. It's you know, and it's a kind of a crossover between what I said earlier with Kevin Trudeau's books about what they don't want you to know. It assumes there's a secret out there.
Yeah.
And I think the thing about secrets is it does tap into what we talked about in number 3 or number 3 with people need a scapegoat.
Yeah.
Is that it's not my fault because I didn't know the secret.
I didn't know. Yeah.
So again,
if I had known the secret,
these all kind of overlap. These don't stand alone. They all kind of interweave with each other. You can use them independently, but you may use them independently as a headline or a lead or a core idea of your promotion or your campaign. But you want to weave all this other stuff in.
Yeah.
Like the cult leader, getting back to, you know, the idea of this book here, doesn't use just one of these.
Right.
Like he might hook you with one of them, but he's going to weave all these other things in as he goes over the course of a day or a week or whatever. So secrets are just incredibly powerful.
Yeah.
And I know when I was a copywriter, one of the things I would be concerned with is like, well, it's not really a secret, right? And my copy chief was like, well, it's a secret to somebody.
Yeah. Somebody out there doesn't
like there's
know
probably a good portion of the audience that we're talking to that this is a secret to. Like they don't know this yet because they're not as far along in the path as you are.
Right.
So you have to remember that as you're an entrepreneur, as you're a business owner, as you mature in your path, whatever path you're on, whether it's health and fitness, whether it's entrepreneurship, you know, whatever it is, you have learned some things that other people don't know yet.
Absolutely.
And to them, it is still some mystical secret.
Yeah.
And if you can reveal that to them, even in B2B, like if you can show them that, and this is just off the top of my head, crazy example, but if you could show them that, you know, you could save $3, you know, per pallet shipping by reducing the cubic inches in a box by 2.4 inches.
Sure.
You know, and it reduces the dimensional shipping weight with a company.
Yeah.
That amounts to whatever. Like to them, that's like a secret. Like nobody else knows. Like, wow.
Yeah.
Or, you know, you use a slightly thinner cardboard that is still sturdy but doesn't cost as much weight.
Yeah.
Or, I mean, all these little things could be secrets.
Right.
And you could position them as these secrets.
Yeah.
And they can help you get appointments. They can help you get... I mean, it's just amazing all the different things you can use.
Well, look at
the
title that we're reading this from is The Forbidden Keys.
Right.
You know, you think about forbidden secrets, you know, anything that's exclusive to, you know, that's not well known, forbidden keys to persuasion. Well, that attracts attention right there. You know, something that I haven't known about. Interesting, you know, you know, using that secret, you know, people want to feel like they are, I guess, you know, whenever you're talking about whether it's information on persuasion, whether it's investing, whether it's, you know, how to, you know, find the right deal on your next real estate, you know, deal that you're trying to make, you know, people want to have the inside scoop. And anytime that you can use something that's exclusive, that's not known to the masses,
right?
You know, that's attractive. People want to know that.
Absolutely. Because there is value to that.
Yeah.
I mean, it's something they don't know. I mean, he talks in here about, just as a very quick example, he talks about how, you know, you may have a whole group of spiritual leaders. Again, we're talking about cults in this particular, you know, he uses as an example. you may have all these people that just talk about spiritual principles, and then you'll have this one guy that stands out, and he's like, yeah, but I talk directly to God.
Right. Yep.
And he tells me things nobody else knows.
Yep.
Right? And that's like, oh, like even if he's only half telling the truth, like I want to know what he knows.
Absolutely.
And it's very, like, it's just so hard to resist.
Yeah.
And if you've got that about how to buy a new car, like, you know, or like you said, like how to buy real estate, or, you know, that can save me even a little bit of either pain or time or money, like that becomes very, very attractive is how to do that. So secrets, and I understand, and I want to, you know, I'm going to use hidden addiction number 4 on the listeners, that you want to be understood. So, like, I understand that secrets feel cheesy. Like, I get it. Like, as a copywriter, that's somewhere that I didn't want to go. I wanted to be more original.
Yeah.
But the fact is, for probably a large portion of your audience, it is a secret.
Yeah.
They don't understand it.
Yeah.
And if you can enlighten them, they're going to be loyal to you by buying your products or services.
Yep.
And it's just
because you've provided them with something that
you opened a whole new world.
Right. Yeah, absolutely.
I mean, it really is a powerful, powerful concept.
I think of Joe Vitale, you know, The Secret, you know, that was, you know, it's been a few years back, but you know, that was just the name alone, and we'll probably get into
The Secret.
Right, The Secret. Yeah,
it's
exactly.
Not a secret. This is the secret. The Secret. You know, it's amazing how one word can change in the entire concept. Yeah, you know, there's so many authors that were in that broadcast, that DVD or that book.
Yeah.
That have gone on to amazing careers because of that one idea that there's a secret that you don't know. That the most successful people in the world know, and if you just knew it, it would change your life.
Right.
And the secret was, you know, what you think about. And it's not a secret to a lot of people, but to a lot of people, it is a secret.
Sure, it is.
And you have to be okay with, as a marketer, as someone who wants to persuade and influence others, you have to be okay with that. You know something they don't know, and you present it as a secret.
Right.
You don't have to use the word secret, but I'm telling you, the word secret works.
Yeah.
It really does.
Right. As a copywriter, you know that using that in your headline or
almost always
things that
wins.
are little known, you know, again,
little known secret. Yeah. What they don't want you to know, anything that alludes to a secret is incredibly powerful. Yeah, absolutely. So I think we're probably at our time, Jonathan.
Yeah.
So
next episode, we'll finish up the hidden addictions.
Yeah. So we got 2 more, and I got to tell you, I'm looking ahead here to number 6 and number 7, and you do not
tease them. Let's tease the audience.
Yeah, we're going to tease it. That's a principle that we're going to talk about at some point. You know, so like 6 and 7, like people need to be blank. And people need to feel a sense of blank. So there's a little teaser for you.
There's a little teaser. So you definitely don't want to
tune in.
Our next
episode.
Subscribe.
Whatever makes this automatically show up in your world.
Bingo.
Do it.
And leave us some comments. We would love to hear back from you. Again, you can find us on iTunes, Stitcher Radio. And if you're on Stitcher or iTunes, either one of those, be sure to leave us a 5-star rating. We will take nothing less than 5 stars. I think that's acceptable. Thanks for listening, and again, you can find us over at Persuasion by the Pint. Jonathan Taylor, Sean McCool, thanks for listening, and we look forward to catching you guys next time.
All right, thanks.